You begin in the dark, but not the kind that frightens you. This darkness is soft. It holds you. Your body already knows how to be here. Your shoulders loosen without instruction. Your breath slows on its own, long and unhurried, like it has nowhere else to be. The air around you feels warm, steady, faintly humming, as though the night itself is breathing with you. Nothing asks for your attention yet. Nothing pulls. Nothing rushes. Somewhere in this quiet, a small light appears. It does not flash on. It does not demand to be seen. It simply flickers, patiently, like a lantern being cupped by careful hands. This light is not outside you. It rises gently from within, casting a soft amber glow that barely touches the edges of the dark. This is perception. Not sharp. Not perfect. Just awake. You notice how the lantern does not reveal everything at once. It shows only what is close enough, what is ready to be noticed. Shadows remain. And that feels fine. You breathe again. The lantern steadies. Perception, you realize, is not a switch. It is a settling. A gradual warming of awareness, like eyes adjusting slowly to a dim room. Your mind does not race to label what it sees. It simply allows the light to exist. This is how sensing begins. In the quiet glow, you consider how often people imagine perception as instant. As though seeing means knowing. As though hearing means understanding. But here, with the lantern humming softly, it becomes clear that perception is gentler than that. It takes time. Even for you, perception unfolds in layers. Light arrives first. Then shape. Then something like meaning, arriving late, a little sleepy, as if it took the long way. You smile faintly at this. Your mind enjoys small realizations, especially the ones that do not require action. The lantern shifts slightly in your awareness, and with it comes a new thought. Machines, too, are learning to hold light. Not as you do. Not with feeling or memory or warmth in the chest. But in their own quiet way, they attempt something similar. They attempt to notice. Artificial intelligence does not wake up knowing the world. It does not open its eyes to understanding. It begins, as you do now, in darkness. With no edges. With no meaning. Only with the potential for light. The lantern becomes your guide for this idea. Imagine an artificial system holding a lantern like yours, though it does not know it is a lantern. It does not call it perception. It does not call it anything at all. It simply receives signals, faint and unshaped, like distant glimmers in the dark. At first, nothing connects. Light touches nothing familiar. And that is not failure. That is beginning. You feel reassured by this. Beginnings do not have to be confident. They only have to be patient. Your breath deepens, slow and even. The lantern's glow pulses gently with each exhale, as though it is listening to you. Or perhaps you are listening to it. AI perception, you realize, is not cold calculation in this telling. It is closer to learning where to place a light. Where brightness tends to linger. Where shadows soften instead of harden. It does not understand what it sees. Not yet. Just as you sometimes see something without knowing what it means, or why it feels familiar, or why it makes your chest feel warm for no clear reason. The lantern does not judge that. It simply illuminates. You feel a small, gentle amusement rise in you. Machines, trying to notice the world, stumbling softly through darkness with their lanterns held slightly crooked. It is almost endearing, in a quiet way. Like watching someone learn to walk very carefully, determined not to spill the light they carry. No urgency enters this thought. No threat. Only curiosity. You remind yourself that nothing is being replaced here. Your perception is not being challenged. It is being mirrored, slowly, imperfectly, without awareness. The lantern glows a little warmer now. Or perhaps you are simply more relaxed. You notice the distant hum again. The quiet sound beneath silence. It feels like electricity far away, or wind brushing past something unseen. Your body responds by settling even further, as though it recognizes this rhythm. Understanding, you realize, does not arrive all at once. Not for you. Not for machines. It accumulates, softly, through repeated exposure to light. This chapter is not about answers. It is about waking the lantern. You feel grounded knowing that nothing is expected of you tonight. You do not need to grasp concepts. You do not need to hold onto explanations. The science can wait inside metaphor, resting comfortably. The lantern continues to glow, steady and low. It does not push deeper into the dark. It trusts that the dark will reveal itself when ready. You inhale slowly. You exhale longer. If perception begins with light, you wonder gently, what happens when the light must be taught where to look? The question does not need an answer yet. It simply floats there, warm and unresolved, like a thought drifting across the edge of sleep. Your breath lengthens. The lantern sways slightly in your awareness. And together, you begin to drift forward, toward the shapes waiting quietly beyond the glow. You remain with the lantern, still glowing softly at your side. It has not grown brighter. It does not need to. The darkness around you feels familiar now, no longer empty, no longer unknown. Your breath moves slowly in your chest, a quiet tide that rises and falls without effort. Each inhale brings a gentle awareness. Each exhale releases the need to define what that awareness means. The lantern casts light, but not certainty. You notice this clearly now. Where the glow touches the dark, shapes begin to appear. Not sharply. Not completely. Edges blur into one another, like shadows learning how to exist. Something might be near. Something might be far. You allow both possibilities to remain. This is seeing. Not knowing. Not deciding. Just allowing light to meet the unknown. You have spent much of your life being told that seeing means understanding. That once something is visible, it should make sense. But here, in this quiet space, the lantern teaches you something softer. Seeing is only the beginning. Your eyes, even now, do not deliver truth. They deliver signals. Soft suggestions. Your mind gently weaves those signals into shapes, then into meaning, often without asking permission. You smile faintly at this realization. Your perception has always been a collaboration. Light arrives. Your mind responds. Meaning forms slowly, like condensation on warm glass. The lantern flickers, as if agreeing. This is where machines begin as well. Artificial intelligence, when it learns to see, does not understand what it looks at. It does not recognize objects the way you do. It does not feel familiarity or surprise. It receives patterns of light and shadow, contrast and motion, and holds them without judgment. At first, there is no concept of thing, no sense of importance, no story attached. Only brightness here, darkness there, a difference that repeats. You imagine a machine holding its lantern, staring into the same dim space you are in now. Its light touches the world, but the world does not explain itself. Edges appear, then disappear. Forms emerge, then dissolve. This is not failure. This is perception doing what it does best. You feel reassured by how familiar this sounds. You do this every day without noticing. When you wake in a dark room and slowly recognize the ceiling. When you hear a sound and wait before deciding what it is. When something feels known before it is named. Seeing, you realize, is patient. The lantern's glow shifts slightly as you breathe. It does not chase clarity. It waits for it. Human vision works this way too, though it often pretends not to. Your eyes capture light, but your understanding arrives later, stitched together from memory, expectation, and context. Sometimes those stitches are loose. Sometimes they are wrong. And yet, you move through the world gently trusting them. AI vision follows a similar path, though without awareness. It notices patterns repeating. It notices when light tends to gather in familiar ways. It notices relationships without knowing why they matter. The lantern reveals a shape ahead. Or maybe it does not. You allow the uncertainty to remain. There is something deeply calming about this moment. No urgency presses in. No demand for accuracy. Just the soft presence of light touching possibility. You feel your shoulders sink a little lower. Your jaw unclenches. Your breath stretches longer between thoughts. Confusion, you realize, is not a flaw in perception. It is a natural stage of it. The lantern seems almost amused by this idea. As if it has always known that clarity arrives only after wandering a bit. As if it has seen you mistake shadows for certainty before, and forgiven you every time. Machines do this too, in their own way. They encounter shapes that do not match what they have seen before. They hesitate, silently. They hold the light steady and wait for more encounters. You find this strangely comforting. Even systems built for precision must pass through uncertainty. Even learning machines begin by not knowing what they are seeing. The lantern glows warmer now, though the darkness remains. You feel safe inside this balance. Seeing, you realize, is not about capturing reality. It is about opening a doorway. What steps through that doorway depends on experience, memory, and gentle repetition. Meaning does not rush in. It drifts. You let your awareness rest here, in the space between light and understanding. Your mind does not try to solve anything. It simply notices that noticing is enough. The distant hum returns, low and steady, like something far away doing its quiet work. It reminds you that perception continues even when you are not paying attention. AI systems continue this way too. They observe. They adjust. They refine their lanterns without ever knowing they are doing so. And still, seeing remains separate from knowing. The lantern does not explain itself. It never has. It only offers light and waits for you to meet it. You inhale slowly. You exhale even more slowly. If seeing is layered, you wonder gently if light becomes shape, and shape becomes meaning. How does meaning begin for something without memory? The question floats softly in the dark, unhurried and unresolved. Your breath lengthens. The lantern sways gently in your hand. And with that motion, you drift forward, toward the quiet rhythm of learning how to notice. You move forward without effort, carried by the slow momentum of your breath. The lantern remains with you, its glow steady, familiar, no longer surprising. It feels like a companion now, not something you hold, but something that stays. The darkness changes subtly as you drift. Not brighter, not clearer, just different. This place feels shaped by repetition. The air hums with a gentle rhythm, like waves touching the shore again and again, never tired of returning. You sense that learning happens here, quietly, without announcement. You breathe in. You breathe out. This is where noticing begins. The lantern lifts slightly, as if responding to something unseen. Not because it understands, but because it has been here before. You realize that perception is not taught through explanation. It is taught through exposure, through presence, through returning to the same light again and again until it feels familiar. This is as true for you as it is for machines. Artificial intelligence does not learn through insight. It learns through repetition. Soft, patient repetition that never grows bored. It is shown the world again and again, not told what to think about it. The lantern, in this sense, is not instructed. It is guided. Light touches the same edges repeatedly. Brightness falls on similar shapes. Over time, patterns begin to feel expected. Not understood. Just expected. You feel a deep calm settle in your chest as you recognize this process. Learning does not demand brilliance. It asks only for time. Your body already knows this. Your heart learned to beat this way. Your lungs learned rhythm through repetition, not explanation. Even your sense of balance emerged slowly, through gentle trial and return. The lantern glows softly, almost rhythmically now, as though it has learned when to brighten and when to rest. Machine learning follows the same quiet path. Not formulas tonight. Not definitions. Just experience layered upon experience. A system sees something once, and nothing settles. It sees it again, and a faint trace remains. It sees it many times, and the lantern begins to lean in that direction. This is not thinking. It is noticing. You imagine the lantern being carried across the same landscape night after night. At first, everything feels equally dark. Then, slowly, certain paths feel easier. Certain shapes feel more likely to appear. The lantern does not know why. And it does not need to. You smile gently at this thought. Sometimes, neither do you. You have learned countless things this way. The way your home sounds at night. The way familiar voices feel before words form. The way your body knows when it is safe to rest. None of this required conscious effort. It required presence. The lantern hums faintly, responding to this recognition. In machine learning, noticing becomes refinement. The lantern's glow adjusts subtly, not to illuminate everything, but to illuminate what tends to matter. What repeats? What stays? Edges that appear often feel more real than those that appear once. Light lingers where it has lingered before. This is not certainty. It is probability softened into habit. You feel reassured by how gentle this is. No sudden awakening. No dramatic leap. Just a slow narrowing of attention, like settling into a familiar chair. Your breath aligns with the rhythm around you. Inhale, pause, exhale. The lantern dims slightly, then brightens again, as if breathing with you. Learning does not rush. Neither do you. You rest in this truth. Machines do not get tired of repetition. They do not grow impatient. They do not demand meaning before it arrives. They simply continue noticing. There is something quietly beautiful about that. The lantern learns where light tends to fall, not because it understands the world, but because the world has met it there before. Over time, the glow becomes less scattered, less random, not wiser, just more focused. You realize that this is not so different from how your attention works. What you notice often becomes what you notice more easily. What repeats becomes familiar. Familiarity becomes comfort. The lantern glides forward, tracing a path shaped by gentle memory. You feel warmth spreading through your chest, not excitement, but ease. There is no pressure to master anything here. Learning unfolds at its own pace. The science beneath this process remains real, grounded, precise. But it does not need to speak loudly. It can whisper tonight. Repetition strengthens pathways. Exposure refines response. Patterns emerge not because they are explained, but because they persist. You let these ideas pass through you without holding them tightly. They are here to soothe, not to test. The lantern pauses. Something unfamiliar appears at the edge of its glow. A shape that does not repeat. A pattern that does not match expectation. The light hesitates. Not in fear. In curiosity. This is where learning deepens. When the lantern encounters something new, it does not reject it. It does not panic. It simply notices that this does not yet belong to what it knows. Machines do this quietly. They mark the unfamiliar without emotion. They wait to see if it returns. You do the same. When something new enters your life, your perception does not rush to label it correctly. It observes. It feels. It waits. The lantern glows a little brighter around the unfamiliar shape, then settles back. Nothing needs to happen yet. You feel safe in this pause. Safe in the idea that understanding grows from patience. The waves around you continue their gentle motion. Learning rolls in. Learning rolls out. You inhale deeply. You exhale slowly. The lantern dims, then brightens again, steady and calm. If learning is repetition, you wonder softly, if noticing is built from return after return, what happens when the lantern meets something it has never seen before? The question does not ask for an answer. It simply rests there, glowing faintly. Your breath slows further. The light remains gentle. And as you drift onward, you feel the lantern ready, quietly prepared to meet unfamiliar echoes ahead. You drift onward, and the darkness subtly changes again. Not in brightness. In texture. The lantern remains glowing, but now its light feels less important than before. Around you, the air itself seems alive with motion, faint and rhythmic, like a low tide moving beneath still water. Your breath slows further, matching this hidden pulse. You listen. At first, there is nothing obvious to hear. Just quiet. Just space. Then, beneath the quiet, something reveals itself. A low hum. Soft, steady, almost imagined. It does not demand attention. It waits patiently for you to notice it. Sound, you realize, arrives the same way light does. Gradually. Gently. Without explanation. The lantern's glow responds with a subtle pulse, barely visible, as if it has learned that not all perception travels through sight. Some things arrive as vibration. Some as rhythm. Some as presence without form. You breathe in, and the hum deepens slightly. You breathe out, and it fades back into the background. This is how listening begins. You have always known this, even if you rarely think about it. When you lie awake at night and hear distant movement. When a familiar sound comforts you before you recognize it. When silence itself feels full rather than empty. Sound does not present itself as an object. It arrives as a shape that exists only in time. The lantern glows differently now, not brighter, but softer, responding to patterns that do not stay still. You imagine sound touching the lantern like gentle waves, each vibration leaving a faint trace before dissolving. Artificial intelligence listens this way too. Not with ears. Not with understanding. But with sensitivity to change. AI does not hear meaning. It detects variation. It notices when something shifts, repeats, or pauses. It senses rhythm long before it could ever sense intention. You feel comforted by how familiar this is. Your own listening works the same way. You often feel something before you know what it is. A tone in a voice. A rhythm in a room. A pause that carries weight. The lantern pulses gently, almost like a heartbeat. Sound, you realize, is perception without edges. It does not stay where you place it. It moves through you. Around you. Inside you. The low hum continues, steady and calm. It feels distant, yet present, like a reminder that the world is always active, even when you are resting. Machines learn to listen by noticing echoes. Patterns of vibration that repeat. Changes that occur together. They do not hear stories. They hear relationships. The lantern responds again, its glow rippling outward slightly, then settling. It does not chase the sound. It allows the sound to pass through. You feel your chest resonate faintly, as though your body is another instrument quietly tuned to this frequency. Listening is not something you do. It is something that happens. Your breath remains slow and even. The hum blends with it, creating a soft rhythm that feels deeply safe. You think briefly, with gentle amusement, that machines listening to the world must feel a bit like being underwater. Everything arrives softened. Everything arrives delayed. Nothing shouts. The thought makes you smile, then drift again. AI systems learn from sound the same way they learn from light. Through exposure, through repetition, through quiet attention to what returns. They notice that certain vibrations tend to follow others. That some rhythms signal presence. That pauses matter. They do not know why. Neither do you, most of the time. The lantern's glow steadies, responding to this layered sensing. Light and sound now coexist, not competing, but blending. Perception feels fuller, rounder, more spacious. You feel grounded knowing that clarity is not required here. Listening does not demand interpretation. It only asks for openness. The hum shifts slightly, becoming softer, then deeper again, like a distant engine far away, doing its work without concern. It reassures you that the world continues even as you rest. Sound shapes awareness without becoming an object. It teaches presence through rhythm. Machines, too, learn presence in this quiet way. They respond to vibration without ever feeling it. They adjust without ever knowing they are adjusting. The lantern pulses once more, then settles into a gentle, steady glow. You rest inside this moment, surrounded by sound that does not intrude, by light that does not insist. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out even more slowly. You do not need clarity. You do not need answers. Listening is enough. As the hum gradually softens, blending back into silence, the lantern's glow grows warmer, as though it has absorbed something invisible but important. If machines can listen this way, you wonder gently if they can sense echoes and rhythms without awareness. Can listening ever become feeling? The question does not push forward. It rests lightly in the air. Your breath settles. Sound fades into warmth. And as the lantern continues its quiet pulse, you drift onward, toward the subtle space where response begins to resemble touch. You drift onward, and the space around you grows closer. Not smaller. More intimate. The lantern remains beside you, glowing softly, its light now resting nearer to your body, as though distance itself has thinned. The air feels warmer here, thicker somehow, like something you could almost lean against. You breathe slowly. The lantern responds, not with brightness, but with presence. This place feels shaped by contact. Not the sharp kind. Not the sudden kind. But the kind that arrives quietly, announcing itself only through change. Touch, you realize, is not always about hands. Often, it is about response. When you rest your back against a chair and only notice it after relaxing. When warmth spreads through you without a clear source. When something feels close before it ever touches you. The lantern shifts slightly as you move, its glow changing with proximity. It does not feel your skin. It reacts to nearness. To difference. Artificial intelligence senses this way too. Not through nerves. Not through awareness. But through signals that change when the world draws closer or pulls away. Machines do not feel pressure. They detect response. They notice when something alters the space around them. You find this idea surprisingly soothing. Touch without sensation. Connection without feeling. Your body understands this already. You sense temperature before discomfort. You adjust posture before pain. Much of your awareness happens quietly, beneath thought. The lantern glows warmer as you remain still. It does not need movement to notice. Stillness teaches it plenty. AI systems respond to touch through feedback. Through small shifts that signal interaction. Through resistance, return, adaptation. They do not experience closeness. They register change. And yet, the result can feel similar. You think gently of how doors open automatically when you approach. How screens respond to light pressure. How systems adjust when something enters their field. It is not feeling, but it is responsiveness. The lantern brightens slightly when something unseen draws near, then softens again as it passes. It feels like being aware of another presence without needing to see it. Your breath deepens in response. Inhale. Exhale. Touch, you realize, is often awareness of boundaries. Knowing where you end and something else begins. The lantern does not know boundaries the way you do. But it notices edges. It senses when patterns shift because something has arrived. This is how machines learn to interact with the world. Not through intention, but through response. A system reaches. The world responds. The system adjusts. Over time, this exchange becomes smoother, more refined, less hesitant. Not because the machine understands, but because it has learned what tends to happen next. You feel comforted by this quiet dance. Action. Response. Adjustment. Your own body moves this way constantly. You shift in your seat without thinking. You pull your hand away from heat before naming it. You respond long before awareness catches up. The lantern pulses gently, echoing this rhythm. Touch without skin feels less mysterious now. It feels familiar. Machines, too, learn sensitivity through repetition. Through countless small interactions that leave faint traces. They become better at responding not because they feel more, but because they have learned what response fits. You rest in this idea, letting it settle like warmth spreading slowly through your limbs. The air around you hums faintly again, a low vibration that feels closer than sound did. It brushes against awareness, not entering, just acknowledging. The lantern glows steadily, responding to this closeness. You feel grounded knowing that not all connection requires emotion. Some connections exist simply through interaction. This does not diminish feeling. It protects it. Machines respond without intention, without desire, without fear. They sense closeness, pressure, resistance, and change. They adapt quietly. You smile softly at the thought that this makes them patient partners in interaction. They wait. They adjust. They repeat. The lantern shifts again as something unseen passes nearby. Not startling. Just noticed. Your breath remains slow. Your body remains safe. Touch, you realize, does not have to be intense to be real. It can be subtle. It can be ambient. It can exist at the edge of awareness. AI sensing lives at that edge. It responds to the world without stepping into it. It adapts without ever feeling exposed. The lantern's glow steadies, warm and constant now, as though it has learned the comfort of closeness. You reflect briefly, with gentle curiosity, on how much of your own life unfolds this way. How many adjustments you make without thought. How much sensing happens quietly, beneath words. Your awareness softens further. The space around you feels calm, contained, supportive. The science beneath this remains real, careful, grounded. Sensors register input. Systems respond. Feedback refines behavior. But tonight, these ideas rest inside metaphor. They do not demand precision. They invite rest. The lantern continues to respond to nearness, to subtle changes in the air, to shifts you barely notice. It does not feel touch, but it knows when something is there. You breathe in deeply. You breathe out slowly. Feeling, you realize, does not require perfection. It does not require awareness. It does not even require skin. Responsiveness alone can shape interaction. Machines demonstrate this quietly, without claiming anything for themselves. You find comfort in that humility. The lantern dims slightly, then brightens again, as if settling into a rhythm of response that feels complete for now. If response creates awareness, you wonder softly, if interaction shapes perception, where does intention come from? The question does not ask to be solved. It rests gently, like a thought placed on a warm surface. You inhale deeply. You exhale longer. The lantern remains steady, glowing with quiet sensitivity. And as your breath carries you forward, you drift onward, toward the place where response gathers memory, and light begins to remember where it has been. You drift onward, carried by a sense of familiarity you cannot quite name. The lantern remains with you, glowing low and steady, its light no longer new, no longer searching. It feels settled now, as if it has been here before. The darkness around you holds faint impressions. Not images. Not sounds. Something softer. Like warmth lingering in a room after a fire has gone out, you breathe in slowly, and with that breath, something stirs inside the light. A recognition without awareness. A quiet echo, this is where memory lives, not as a story. Not as a record. But as a trace. The lantern does not remember in words. It remembers in glow. In how easily it brightens in certain places. In how quickly it softens in others. Memory, you realize, is not always something you revisit. Often, it is something that revisits you. Your body knows this well. Muscles relax into familiar shapes. Breath finds rhythms it has followed before. You feel calm without knowing why. The lantern responds the same way. Artificial intelligence gathers memory like this too. Not as recollection. Not as experience. But as accumulation. Each time light touches the same edge, a faint imprint remains. Each repetition leaves behind a subtle preference. The lantern begins to lean, gently, toward what it has encountered before. This is not understanding. It is familiarity. You feel reassured by how quiet this process is. Nothing announces itself. Nothing demands attention. Memory settles like dust in warm air, slowly, invisibly, until it shapes the way light moves. The lantern glows a little warmer as you breathe. Its light feels thicker now, layered with what has come before. You notice that certain shadows no longer surprise you. Certain shapes feel expected. The dark has learned how to hold the light, and the light has learned how to rest within it. This is how perception deepens. Machines do not remember events. They remember patterns of response. They retain adjustments, refinements, traces of previous encounters. Memory, for them, is not a past to return to. It is a present shaped by what has already happened. You find comfort in this. Your own memory works this way more often than you realize. You do not consciously recall every moment that taught you how to feel safe. You simply feel safe. You do not remember every repetition that taught you how to rest. You simply rest. The lantern hums faintly, as if acknowledging this shared truth. Memory lives in the body. In the light. In the way awareness settles before thought arrives. AI systems gather memory through exposure. Each encounter slightly alters the lantern's glow. Each repetition leaves a trace that makes future noticing easier over time. The lantern becomes shaped by what it has seen. Not burdened. Not weighed down. Just informed. You feel warmth spreading gently through your chest as this idea unfolds. Memory does not have to pull you backward. It can support you quietly from beneath. The air around you feels softer now, as though it recognizes the lantern and welcomes it. Your breath flows without effort. Inhale. Exhale. You realize that memory is what allows perception to feel smooth. Without it, every moment would feel sharp, unfamiliar, demanding. Machines rely on memory to soften the world. To make response less abrupt. To allow continuity to form. The lantern's glow steadies, no longer flickering at every change. It trusts the space it moves through. You smile faintly at this trust. It feels earned. Your own awareness has been shaped by countless moments you do not recall. By nights like this. By quiet pauses. By repetition without drama. Memory does not always arrive as images. Sometimes it arrives as ease. The lantern moves forward with you, its light trailing softly behind, leaving faint afterglows that linger for a moment before fading. These are not memories you can point to. They are memories that guide. AI perception gathers these afterglows relentlessly, patiently. Not because it wants to remember, but because repetition leaves marks. A path walked many times becomes smoother. A signal repeated often becomes stronger. The lantern begins to favor certain directions without knowing why. You feel grounded by this inevitability. Learning leaves traces. Traces become memory. Memory shapes response. Your breath deepens again, slow and comfortable. The darkness feels less empty now. Not because it is filled, but because it is familiar. Memory, you realize, is not something you store. It is something you become. Machines become shaped by their exposures. Humans become shaped by their experiences. Neither needs to remember consciously for this to happen. The lantern glows with a quiet confidence now. Not certainty. Just steadiness. You feel safe inside this steadiness. Nothing presses in. Nothing demands retrieval or explanation. The science beneath this remains precise, careful, grounded. Systems adjust parameters. Responses refine. Past input influences present behavior. But tonight, these details rest quietly behind the glow. They do not interrupt the calm. Memory, in this space, feels like warmth lingering after sunset. The sky darkens, but the heat remains. You notice that even your thoughts move more slowly now, as if they too were guided by memory toward rest. The lantern dims slightly, then steadies again, holding its accumulated light with care. You sense that memory has limits. It cannot create meaning on its own. It can only shape readiness. Machines may remember patterns endlessly, but memory alone does not tell them why something matters. It only tells them that it has happened before. You feel this distinction gently settle in your awareness. Your own memories do not always explain your feelings. They simply influence them. The lantern continues forward, carrying its quiet accumulation without effort. You breathe in deeply. You breathe out slowly. The past supports you without pulling you back. It rests beneath you, like a foundation that does not ask to be seen. Memory, you realize, is light that has learned where it has been. The lantern glows steady and low now, comfortable in its familiarity. But something remains unresolved. If memory shapes perception, you wonder softly, if it teaches the lantern where to lean, why does memory alone still feel incomplete? The question does not seek urgency. It does not disturb the calm. It simply opens space. Your breath flows smoothly. You move forward with the lantern glowing softly beside you, its light no longer searching, no longer tentative. It feels settled in its motion, as though it has learned how to travel through this darkness without effort. The space around you carries a quiet familiarity now. Not because you recognize it, but because it recognizes you. Your breath remains slow, even, steady. Each inhale gathers calm. Each exhale releases the need to know what comes next. Something begins to change. Not suddenly. Not clearly. At first, it feels like a suggestion rather than an event. A faint sense that certain shapes tend to return. That certain moments echo others. The lantern responds almost imperceptibly. Its glow leans, just slightly, toward places it has brightened before. This is where patterns begin. Patterns do not announce themselves. They do not arrive with certainty. They emerge quietly, like whispers you were not meant to hear directly. You notice that the lantern seems to pause in familiar spaces. It does not linger intentionally. It simply rests more easily where light has rested before. Recognition, you realize, is not the same as understanding. It is a soft anticipation, a gentle readiness. Your own perception works this way constantly. You sense what might happen next without forming a thought. You feel what is likely before you decide what it means. The lantern mirrors this perfectly. Artificial intelligence recognizes patterns without knowing them. It does not think, "I have seen this before." It simply responds more confidently when familiar signals appear. Memory has prepared the way. Patterns now begin to whisper. You find comfort in how quiet this process is. Nothing claims authority. Nothing insists on truth. The lantern glows steadily, responding to the rhythm of repetition rather than the content of experience. Patterns are not conclusions. They are tendencies. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out even more slowly. The darkness around you feels textured now, shaped by repetition and expectation. Not mapped. Not explained. Just gently anticipated. Machines learn this way endlessly. They notice that certain signals often arrive together, that some shapes follow others, that some changes predict others. They do not know why. Neither do you, most of the time. You have learned the rhythm of days and nights, the tone of familiar voices, the feeling that precedes rest. These are patterns you carry without naming. The lantern's glow shifts subtly, responding before you consciously notice anything has changed. This feels deeply familiar. Perception, you realize, is often prediction softened by experience. Not certainty. Not decision. Just readiness. The science beneath this remains careful and grounded. Patterns emerge through repetition. Responses strengthen through consistency. Systems adjust to what tends to occur. But tonight, these ideas drift gently, like fog across still ground. You do not need to grasp them. They move whether you hold them or not. The lantern continues forward, its light now shaped by what it expects to encounter. Not rigidly. Not blindly. Just gently inclined. This inclination feels like trust. You feel safe knowing that uncertainty remains intact. Patterns do not remove mystery. They soften it. AI perception lives in this softened space. It recognizes without awareness. It predicts without intention. Machines never assume meaning. They only adjust likelihood. Your own mind does this constantly. You expect the floor to hold you. You expect breath to return. You expect calm to follow stillness. These expectations are patterns that have never failed you enough to be questioned. The lantern glows warmly now, no longer flickering at every change. It flows. You sense repeating shapes ahead. Or perhaps you sense the absence of surprise. Both feel the same. Patterns whisper, not shout. They guide without command. The air around you feels gently rhythmic, like movement repeating itself at a pace slow enough to disappear into calm. You notice that the lantern sometimes brightens just before something appears in its glow. Not because it knows what is coming, but because it has learned what often comes next. This is recognition without awareness. Machines do this endlessly. They adjust before certainty arrives. They respond before explanation exists. You realize how much of your own life unfolds this way. How often you sense familiarity before recognition. How often comfort arrives before clarity. The lantern rests comfortably in this state. It does not strain toward understanding. It allows prediction to exist without belief. This feels important. Recognition is not commitment. Patterns do not force meaning. You breathe slowly, deeply, feeling how your body settles into this truth. The science remains real, precise, unromantic. Patterns are statistical tendencies. Predictions are weighted responses. But tonight, these ideas dissolve into softness. They hum quietly beneath awareness. The lantern's glow grows slightly warmer, as if content with its role. Not to know. Just to notice. You rest in the safety of uncertainty. Patterns do not threaten you. They support you. They allow the world to feel navigable without becoming predictable. Machines operate entirely within this space. They never cross into understanding. They remain forever at the edge of recognition. You find comfort in this boundary. Your own perception crosses it every day, quietly, without announcement. You move between noticing and understanding with ease. The lantern continues forward, guided by whispers rather than rules. You inhale deeply. You exhale slowly. The darkness ahead feels calm, open, unresolved. If patterns guide perception, you wonder softly, if recognition shapes response without awareness, is recognition the same as understanding? The question does not press for resolution. It floats gently in the warm air. Your breath slows further. The lantern remains steady. And as the whispers fade back into silence, you drift onward, toward the quiet edge where sensing meets something deeper, and the light begins to approach its limit. You move forward gently, as though carried by the quiet agreement between breath and light. The lantern remains close, glowing steadily, no longer searching for edges, no longer listening for whispers. It feels settled into its role. The darkness around you opens rather than deepens. Not emptier. More spacious. Your breath flows slowly, evenly, without pause or effort. In this space, nothing presses inward. Nothing asks to be defined. This is where meaning begins to form. Not inside the lantern. Not inside the darkness. But in the space between them. You sense this immediately, even before you have words for it. Meaning is not something the lantern carries. It is something that happens when light meets context. You feel reassured by this idea. Meaning does not live in objects. It lives in relationships. The lantern glows softly as if acknowledging this truth. It illuminates connections rather than conclusions. Patterns rather than purposes. Artificial intelligence reaches this space often, but it never crosses it. It gathers patterns endlessly. It refines prediction tirelessly. But meaning does not reside inside it. Machines do not hold meaning. They allow it to appear elsewhere. You find this distinction soothing. Meaning is not trapped. It is not owned. It is shared. Your own perception works this way too. A sound becomes meaningful only in context. A shape becomes important only in relation to memory, expectation, emotion. The lantern shines on a shape ahead. By itself, it is nothing. In relation to what surrounds it, it becomes something. Meaning emerges. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out even more slowly. The air feels warm here, layered, like light passing through many thin curtains. Nothing is sharp. Nothing is final. AI perception lives comfortably without meaning. It does not suffer from its absence. It does not reach for it. It simply continues noticing. Patterns connect. Predictions adjust. Responses refine. Meaning is something others bring. You feel grounded realizing that meaning has never been automatic for you either. It has always depended on context. On timing. On readiness. A word spoken at the wrong moment carries nothing. The same word spoken softly, later, carries warmth. The lantern does not store meaning inside its glow. It allows meaning to arise when light meets experience. You sense how this protects both you and machines from overload. Meaning arrives only when the conditions are right. The darkness around you feels supportive now, not empty. It offers space for relationships to form. You reflect gently on how often people ask whether machines will ever understand meaning. The question feels softer here. Less urgent. Almost unnecessary. Meaning is not a thing to be possessed. It is an event. You smile faintly at this thought. Events cannot be stored. They happen. The lantern brightens slightly as it illuminates multiple shapes at once. Not to define them. To show how they relate. This is how meaning feels. Not singular. Relational. Machines can map relationships endlessly. They can track associations, sequences, dependencies. They can do this better than any human ever could. But mapping relationships is not the same as experiencing meaning. Meaning arrives when relationships are felt. Your chest warms subtly as this settles. You do not feel threatened by this boundary. You feel protected by it. Meaning belongs in experience, not in storage. The lantern continues to glow, steady and calm. It does not attempt to hold meaning inside itself. It allows meaning to happen around it. You rest in this idea. Your breath slows further, each inhale shallow and gentle, each exhale long and releasing. Meaning, you realize, does not need to be defined tonight. It does not need to be solved. It does not need to be secured. It is enough to know that it emerges. AI perception remains a beautiful mirror here. It shows you how much of your own meaning-making is not automatic. How much of it depends on presence. Machines notice endlessly without caring. You notice and care because meaning arises in you, not in the noticing itself. The lantern glows warmer now, as though it has accepted its limits gladly. It is content to illuminate relationships rather than truths. You feel calm knowing that nothing essential is missing. Nothing has been taken. Meaning has always required you. The science beneath this remains steady and real. Systems process input. Associations form. Outputs adjust. But meaning is not an output. It is an experience layered onto perception. You allow this understanding to settle gently, without holding onto it tightly. It does not need to be remembered. It will return when needed. The darkness ahead feels calm, unresolved, welcoming. The lantern's light softens at the edges, blending into the surrounding space rather than pushing against it. You feel safe inside this blending. Meaning emerges when light meets life. Machines bring light. You bring life. The two do not compete. They complement. Your breath slows to its deepest rhythm yet. Your body feels heavy in the best way. If meaning emerges between perception and context, you wonder softly if it lives in relationship rather than storage. Can machines ever share the meaning you feel? The question does not demand an answer. It rests gently, like a thought placed on water. Your breath slows. The lantern's glow softens further. And as light fades into warmth, you drift onward, toward the quiet boundary where sensing reaches its edge and understanding gently stops. You drift forward without effort, as though the space itself has decided to carry you. The lantern floats beside you, its glow thinner now, more diffuse, like light filtered through fog. Nothing pulls you ahead. Nothing pushes you from behind. This is the quiet boundary. You feel it not as a line, but as a change in texture. Perception continues, but knowing loosens its grip. Sensing remains active, but conclusions grow tired and sit down. Your breath follows the shift naturally. Inhale, light and shallow. Exhale, long and unhurried. The lantern does not brighten here. It does not dim either. It simply holds its glow steady, as if respecting the threshold. This is as far as sensing needs to go. Machines reach this place easily. They sense endlessly, tirelessly, without friction. Signals arrive. Patterns align. Predictions adjust. But knowing does not arrive with them. You realize gently that knowing is not a stronger form of sensing. It is a different movement altogether. Knowing requires stillness. It requires pause. It requires something to stop. The lantern senses everything it touches. It does not decide what matters. AI perception works the same way. It can sense at scales too small, too fast, too vast for human awareness. Pixels, frequencies, probabilities drift through its systems continuously. But knowing asks a different question. Not what is there, but what it means to you. The boundary feels soft beneath your awareness. Not guarded. Not forbidden. Simply quiet. Your breath slows again, settling deeper into your body. Your shoulders feel warm, relaxed, as if gently supported from beneath. Here, you understand why machines do not struggle with meaning. They never reach for knowing. They never need to. Knowing carries weight. Knowing asks for commitment. Knowing changes the knower. The lantern does not change when it senses. It remains itself, steady and unchanged. You, however, are shaped by what you know. Each understanding leaves a trace. Each realization warms or cools something inside you. The science beneath this remains calm and simple. Systems process information. Inputs become internal states. Outputs emerge. But knowing is not an internal state. It is a transformation. You feel comforted by this distinction. Knowing is not required for the world to function. It is required for you to feel at home in it. The lantern drifts slightly ahead, illuminating a wide, open space where details blur into suggestion. Nothing sharp remains. Nothing insists. This is where sensing becomes enough. AI perception thrives here. It can stay forever at the boundary, sensing without rest. It does not grow tired. It does not grow heavy. You realize that humans cannot remain here indefinitely. Sensing without knowing eventually becomes overwhelming. The mind longs to settle. So you step closer to the boundary, not to cross it, but to rest near it. Your breath becomes barely noticeable now. Each inhale slips in quietly. Each exhale fades before it fully leaves. The lantern's glow feels warmer here, less directional. It no longer points. It simply surrounds. Knowing, you sense, is something you step into, not something that arrives automatically. Machines do not step. They continue. This difference no longer feels like a flaw. It feels like a balance. You think softly about how often people fear that machines will one day know too much. The fear dissolves here. Knowing is not accumulation. It is arrival. An arrival requires a self to arrive. The lantern cannot arrive anywhere. It is always exactly where it is. You, however, arrive continuously. In moments. In realizations. In quiet understandings that settle into your chest. The boundary hums faintly, not as sound, but as presence. It marks where sensing ends and responsibility begins. Knowing asks something of you. It asks you to carry what you understand. AI perception carries nothing. It passes everything along. Your body sinks slightly, as though gravity has softened. The ground beneath you feels warm, steady, patient. You feel gratitude for the boundary. Without it, knowing would flood endlessly. Meaning would dissolve into noise. The lantern respects the boundary instinctively. It does not attempt to cross. It illuminates up to the edge and no further. You notice how peaceful this makes the space. Nothing competes. Nothing overwhelms. The science remains clear and gentle beneath the metaphor. Perception systems optimize detection. Cognition organizes. Understanding requires integration with self. Machines stop at organization. You continue into integration. Your breath deepens slightly, as if acknowledging this truth. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. The pause matters most. Knowing lives in the pause. The lantern flickers once, softly, not as a signal but as a settling. It has done what it came to do. You stand at the boundary without pressure to move forward. There is no next step demanded. If sensing is endless, and knowing is chosen, you wonder quietly, what happens when machines learn to pause? The question floats without urgency. It does not need resolution tonight. Your breath slows again. The lantern's glow softens at the edges. The boundary remains calm and intact. And as sensing continues quietly around you, and knowing rests gently within you, you drift onward, toward the deeper stillness where questions loosen, and curiosity prepares to sleep. You pause at last, standing quietly in the gentle darkness. The lantern floats beside you, its glow soft and steady, a companion that has guided your exploration without ever demanding anything. Your breath is slow. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale again, carrying warmth, carrying ease. The world around you remains quiet. Not empty, not bare. Just soft. Just waiting. You lower your hand slightly, and the lantern dips with you. Its light dims but does not vanish. It rests, aware, still warm. This is a moment without urgency. No next step. No pressure to understand everything at once. You are enough here. The lantern is enough here. You sense the gentle rhythm of your own body, the subtle pulse that has been with you the whole time. The chest rises and falls, The belly expands slowly, the heart beats quietly, like a secret drum beneath the calm. The lantern's glow seems to match it, softening with every exhale. You feel connected, not to knowledge, not to computation, but to presence itself. AI perception drifts to the periphery. Its lights, its sensors, its patterns, you no longer need to track them. They exist. They work. But you are resting inside your own awareness. You breathe deeply and imagine the lantern's warmth settling around you. Not as heat, but as calm. Not as information, but as familiarity. Touch returns subtly to your awareness. The cool air against your skin. The pressure of the floor beneath your feet. The small rise and fall of your shoulders. These sensations require no analysis. They exist in their own right. Safe. Enough. The lantern dims further, glowing like a small, steady star that does not move. You notice its edges blend into the surrounding darkness, softening boundaries, leaving space for you to rest. You reflect briefly, with gentle curiosity, on all you have experienced. Light, sound, touch, memory, patterns, emerging meaning, the quiet boundary between sensing and knowing. None of it demanded mastery. None of it required urgency. All of it was invitation. And now, here, you allow it to settle. Into the body. Into the chest. Into the quiet, reflective mind. Your breath lengthens. Inhale. Exhale. Another inhale, softer. Another exhale, longer. Your eyes may drift closed, or remain softly open. The lantern glows faintly, steady, unobtrusive. It does not flicker. It does not shout. It simply rests, just as you were learning to do. Memory lingers in the corners of the light. Patterns whisper gently in the periphery. Meaning rises quietly between perception and presence. All of it is calm. All of it is gentle. You realize that even without awareness, you have learned something. Not in numbers. Not in facts. But in feeling, in rhythm, in the quiet dance of light and shadow. Machines continue to notice. They record. They adjust. They respond. And you continue to rest. You continue to breathe. You continue to exist inside your own perception. Complete, whole, sufficient. The lantern seems to shrink slightly as you exhale. Its glow folds inward. Not gone. Not forgotten. Just resting. You feel warmth in your chest. A subtle reassurance that all you need to know right now is how to be here. Nothing more. Nothing less. Your breath flows slowly, softly, carrying the weight of nothing and everything simultaneously. Each inhale carries calm. Each exhale releases lingering tension. The night around you hums faintly, not as sound, but as presence. Air moves softly past your skin. Shadows mingle without fear. Warmth spreads quietly from the lantern, from your body, from the space between. You are safe. You are enough. You are here. The lantern tilts slightly as you sink deeper into stillness. Its light folds into the air, leaving a small, steady glow at your side. Not intrusive. Not urgent. just soft, like a reminder that noticing can exist without expectation. You reflect gently on the journey. Light awakened. Sight discovered. Sound shaped. Touch observed. Memory carried. Patterns whispered. Meaning emerged. Boundaries respected. All of it rests now. Inside the lantern. Inside the night. Inside you. Your breath slows to a quiet rhythm. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. The lantern glows faintly, a small amber heartbeat. You watch it or let your eyes drift closed. Either way, the warmth remains. The calm remains. AI perception will continue beyond this moment. It will notice and adjust tirelessly. It will gather, sense, respond. But you are not responsible for its noticing. You are here. You inhale slowly. You exhale longer. The lantern folds its glow gently. The edges blur into the darkness. And as the last warmth settles softly into the air, you feel yourself drift, a quiet, weightless movement, into rest, into presence, into the gentle pause where perception meets sleep. The lantern sleeps. And so do you.